There's an article today in the Daily Telegraph about Robert Jenrick's positioning about the Rwanda bill. And on Tuesday night, I quote, the Tory leadership hopefuls said on Tuesday night that every minister turned a blind eye to weaknesses in the bill, which was intended to deport asylum seekers to the East African country. No one was ever deported under a scheme, apart from 4 migrants who went to Rwanda voluntarily. And Jenrick resigned as immigration minister in December last year because measures he had proposed to strengthen the bill were rejected by Sunak. He told Sky News there was a choice for me at the time: take a bill through Parliament which I knew didn't work and which frankly everyone in the cabinet knew didn't work, or leave the government and make the case in Parliament where I was honest with myself and with the public. In crafting this critique, one can hardly avoid noting the absurdity of a policy acknowledged as futile by the very architects of the government who designed it. Jenrick's revelations illuminate a cabinet unwilling to support a doomed scheme, a bureaucratic spectacle that squandered millions yet produced laughable results. 4 voluntary deportations, and they disappeared. This grand migration reform turned into an unmitigated misadventure, publicly championed, privately dismissed, ultimately rejected. And Jenrick's statement that everyone in the cabinet knew that it was unworkable but turned a blind eye reveals a disturbing level of collective cognitive dissonance within Sunak's leadership. The cabinet's reluctance to confront the policy's inadequacies reflects a certain theatrical commitment, playing to a hardline base of stupidity with a policy that the government, the cabinet, believed was unachievable. Jenrick's own position here is paradoxical. While he frames himself as the lone voice of reason, he initially supported the bill and proposed his own tweaks, yet upon resigning he becomes the grand whistleblower, disclosing the policy's weaknesses and effectively condemning his colleagues' passivity. The bill's most glaring failure, of course, is its inability to withstand legal scrutiny, blocked by the ECHR and domestically litigated to oblivion. It symbolised not only poor policy design but also a willful disregard for judicial oversight. And in his predictable twist, Jenrick's solution to the policy's legal entanglements is to suggest an exit from the ECHR. It's a drastic and arguably regressive response that ignores UK's commitment to human rights and the local, national, legal issues with the legislation. The notion that international legal frameworks can simply be bypassed and then the bill will be fine is completely absurd and flies in the face of the reality that took place. Rather than, it underscores a troubling trend towards isolationism and hindsight in the face of criticism. And then there's the financial folly. The Home Office's £7 million estimate, though it's contested, highlights a staggering expenditure of the unimplemented scheme, with projected costs potentially rising to over £10 billion. This policy seems less about genuine migration control and more about a costly exercise in political posturing by Suella Braverman. To think that while many British people faced economic hardship, these funds were earmarked for a scheme that never took flight, never could take flight. And Jenrick is now admitting this so fulsomely. Sunak's cabinet, their collective failure to consider alternatives, to seek practical reform of, for example, the 1951 Refugee Convention, or even to communicate transparently with the public, reflects poorly on the Conservative Party's priorities. And the Rwanda bill fiasco in its entirety, these 3 laws, the Nationality and Borders Act, the Illegal Immigration Act, the Rwanda Act itself, all 3 need to be repealed, or Keir Starmer is left in the absurdity of having laws on the statute book that he has no intention of respecting. It reveals a disingenuous streak in British governance. It's a spectacle of empty promises, a governance of showmanship rather than substance. And should Starmer not repeal those laws, then he is part of that illusion. As Jenrick predicts, the Conservative Party may indeed face the red-hot fury of voters, a fitting coda to a bill that was, by all accounts, never designed to work. And Jenrick doesn't come out well from this episode at all, no matter how much he spins this. This is about wasting time, wasting money, and wasting the patience of the people.